So just talk clearly and loudly. I welcome everybody in public forum and thank you for coming. Just some aspects relating to the meeting, I've emailed or circulated to the members an apology in terms of making it clear for Ariana just having to take minutes and notes remotely. That makes it a little bit more difficult, so it's going to be really important today to just work your questions through the chair, hold your hand up, as Martin said, you can say your name, doesn't have to do it. Or alternately be looking up at Ariana often and just make sure that things are progressing okay. So, fine. So to start the meeting, we'd like to do a take care. Thank you very much. Marie, if you would do that, thanks. Well,
E ngā tōru o ngā tāmatua, o te rangi o te whenua. Kei ara ka kina i a mātou i ngā kapi e whiriwhiri ai i tēnei wā. E raro anō, i te aro a ranganui ki runga, a tapatua ruku i tapatua nei. Whakamaua, kia tīna, hauri e, hui e, tārai e.
Whakamaua, ko te atua, ia nei te ariki o te arangi o te whenua.
very nice. Thanks, Peter. Yeah. So to start the meeting off, apologies, please. Any apologies? And Robin, lovely to see you today. Public forum. So we'll start there. Just to remind people in public forum that we're going to hear you very much. Have the discretion to extend it. We've got a lot on our agenda and just got to work that through as best we can. So to start that off, Diane, would you like to come forward?
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Hello. Nice to see everyone here. Hi, Ariana.
Goodbye, Ariane. So, hi, I'm here on behalf of Thames Music and Drama, and we're on the audit paper under the community grant applications today. So we haven't been here for a little while for grant money, so we just thought it'd be a good time to remind you who we are, what we do, and how much you need your help to continue what we're doing. Presentation?
So just click on the other, yeah, and click on the top there, top right. Ooh. Do you want me to start it or are you okay to start it?
Slideshow.
Oh, so that. So we're a decent group of volunteers. We've been around since 1963, producing musicals and plays. We host, we facilitate, we will collaborate with other community groups and groups from out of the area or performers as well. We facilitate workshops to enable young people to develop their craft. We've got another school holiday workshop coming up very shortly, and it's a singing workshop with one of our, it's still part of our mayor family, but one of our family that started as a child with us. He was in Sound of Youth many years ago, went on to study music and make it a profession, and now he's back in the area. We've used him to facilitate teaching our younger generation as well. So it's really lovely to see that all come in full circle. And we're also encouraging young people to find their voice through confidence in theatre. That's part of who we are. This is some of the things we've done in the last few years. Grace, Murder at the Cornwall Arm, which we hosted at the Workingmen's Club, which is also known as the Cornwall Arm. So we move about where we can and help other community groups do well, so the Workingmen's Clubs do well over that. Beauty and the Beast. Yay! Hold the name off, might see a familiar face in that one. Ground Involvement 80 Days, which we did at the pub house, and we worked with Bell Street Complex with that one. That was brilliant. Sail with Penguin. Up the Duck, locally written one. Peter Pan and the Daily Secret, also locally written. So contributing to the vibrant district, which is part of your long-term plan, goals. So we thought we'd talk about how we fit that. So we actively encourage our people through workshops and youth production. We are always looking for shows that will attract new members of all ages, gender identity, sexual orientation, race or religion. We endeavour to make our shows very affordable. If you go to a show in Auckland, you're looking at a lot of money. And it's just not affordable for a lot of people. So when we do produce them here, we don't do the big ticket shows at $70 a ticket. We still try and keep it around the $30 mark. We're welcome into all those with challenges. So we work with people with MS, with brain injury, mental disability and challenges. Yeah, it's like anyone's welcome. And we also, of course, as I mentioned before, work with local script writers. And we aim to appeal for a wide range of audience. We put our survey out about 18 months ago and said, what are we doing that you like? What are we doing that you don't like? What else are we missing? So we're always checking back in with our audience to see, are we on the right track? Are we providing what we want? These are some of our beautiful tamariki who do all sorts of workshops with us, and then we always do a showcase at the end of it. So not only do they learn part of the film, they also perform. A couple of years ago, we also did a youth production called Youth Production, which meant everybody in the show was under 18, and the director was only 21. So that was really amazing to be able to give those young people an opportunity. Rosie, the one down there in the corner, Rosie Doobie, is actually on our committee. She's our youth representative on our committee, but she just turned 14, 15. She'll tell me if I get the wrong one, but she's young. And she's been on there for about a year now, so that's lovely that we encourage our young people to not only participate, but actually be part of the decision-making process. We're our beautiful people. Such a big here, so what we've got coming up is Mamma Mia. Okay, probably one of your favourite ever songs, right? Alright, so it's a big preview of the set that we want. So as we just talked about, these shows cost a lot of money, and what we would like to do is actually get in a set that we know is in a set cost. If we start to build something ourselves, it can sort of blow out a little bit, which you come across things that you didn't know about. So we have got access to a set that has been used at several other theatres. So this is what it looked like in Poketari. So it's 2 stories, which is really exciting for us to have. We've got a lower set, upper set, the actors can come in from about 5 different entrances, and it looks pretty spectacular. And I'm sure that we can make great work out of that. We can adjust it slightly, but it's going to fit in our theatre, which is the main thing. We wanted to check it was going to fit in there, and it comes in little segments, so it can be adjusted and adapted to what we want. So what we're going to do is say, Thames Music Drone, fantasy musical for all of ongoing support to the arts. Thank you very much. You're all quite mad. That's
It's not a presentation. Is there, any points of clarification to anyone? No, thanks for the information, we appreciate it.
Awesome.
Keep up the good work for our community and then go. Great.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you'll keep hearing those songs through your head for the rest of the day.
Althea, you come on board, and is Danny Allen going to be with you?
No, that's it.
Is that? Oh, right, okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Althea Barker. I'm here today as an independent person that is involved in a lot of history areas in Thames and heritage. And I've always said to Danielle, not particularly against the Treasury, but I'm speaking about equitable funding for Heritage Network organisations. I'm solely speaking as an individual. It came in the news during lockdown that supposedly the Treasury had been given another considerable grant, and that's fine, and I'm not against that. But as I've got some points here, and I'll leave the paper here, the things that we discussed amongst ourselves as individuals is, the first thing is the TCDC and the Thames Community Board both contribute to organisations like the Treasury. So as this year, down in the proposed funding is $60,000 for 3 years. It seems a lot of money, so we're just wondering, one, why is there 2 grants? Why does it come from TCDC and why does it come from the Thames Community Board? The second thing that we'd like to know, and I'd like to know, is there a hierarchy that people have in their minds when they're awarding anything? Because you sometimes feel like that you're down here and there's other groups that are up here. Supposedly we all try and do the same job, whether it's me out roaming around the cemeteries, the road, park, forest. So is there a hierarchy? Are some places being better than others, so they get more funding than others on a regular basis? The third point is, can the Thames Community Board be very transparent with the money that is awarded? In the past, it's been very hard to know what groups get, and some people just can't believe it, that what some get and what some don't. It was interesting actually on page, I think it's page 46, there's a little table that proposes what the grants will be for the next 3 years. A third of the funding goes to organisation number 5, which sort of blows me away. But you may have a reason why that happens. But whatever's awarded, can it be very transparent and go out to the public? This is what people are getting. So finally, can the Thames Community Board take measures to provide equitable funding to the heritage organisations and charitable society at a level precedent set by that for number 5? We don't want to take it, and I don't want to take away from that group, but I'd love to get something that was equitable to that group for some of the groups that I'm involved in. Many of us are doing exactly the same jobs, and we'd love to get exactly the same level of support. So it may seem a bit harsh, but reality out there, when we're there every day trying to do things, we just want to be on a level playing field. We're all trying to do the same thing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And there might be an opportunity for Rose to contact you at some stage and just explain to you the current grant process and some of the things that you're questioning at the moment, in terms of just how that might be applied. So
We're aware of the processes, but it still seems to be that the inequities are very wide.
yeah, you won't say.
Thank you. So I'll just leave it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle and
So,
hi.
should I? Sorry, I didn't, but I wasn't able to show the process, but, it's been done.
How are you?
Good, so this is kind of happening, and we're here on behalf of the Treasury. So, kind of just wanted to do what I worked very good with me when I started, was come here and introduce me to everyone. We have been really lucky to get some funding for Hannah's role, which is a collections assistant, for 1 year first term at the moment. We've basically been working really hard this year to make the Treasury's archive collection more accessible to the public. So that's sort of offering free tours and significantly reducing our research charges, and a big part of that is cataloguing. Because in the past at the Treasury it was most of the cataloguing was sort of done on paper records which aren't searchable, so we're really trying to get everything into a central collection management system that's searchable. So that's what Hannah's been doing for the next year.
Was partly minority. Categorising as part of your priority.
Yeah, it just makes the collection more accessible to us and to everyone else, and we want to have a version of that catalogue online for people to be able to access remotely as well. Yeah, so we've got a long way to go, but yeah, we're really excited to have Hannah here. So I thought I would just let her talk a little bit about where she come from and what she's done before.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you.
So, as you know, Hannah. I'm originally from Rotorua, but went down to Wellington to study and finished my master's in museum and heritage practice last year. I've had work experience at Te Papa, the Dow's, Catherine Mansfield and Wellington Museum. So I bring a lot of collection management knowledge and skills. And yeah, really loving it so far.
Well, and we really wish you well, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
in those endeavours.
And yeah, we have a large pool of volunteers who are really keen to be involved, and yeah, I mean, a lot of people do want to be on the front desk or in our waiting room doing that sort of public interaction front of house stuff, but then we sort of have an equal number of people that aren't really interested in that and they just want to do the back of house stuff, which is that cataloguing and archiving and freezing and boxing and all of that stuff. So Hannah's going to be working closely with the volunteers that we can, yeah.
All right, any points of clarification from any of the board members?
So I just had a question, so you were talking about put online along the collection.
Ariana, are you still with us? Story there.
I am. Yes, I am. I can hear.
About a lot of the more of the online collection online, so it's searchable and more accessible to people, and presumably making a bit more money that from people paying to access.
Yeah, I think there might have been, yeah, I'm not sure about, I think there might have been a misconception in the past about being able to make money from digitizing images or collection items, because realistically, you're never going to be able to make that more than it costs to do it. It's such an expensive thing to do. But yeah, but we are sort of, we've applied for funding for a digitisation suite, which is, yeah, the only thing more expensive than digitising in-house and sending it away to the other big companies to get digitised, which is what a lot of people do in New Zealand. But we haven't applied for our own digitisation suite, and hopefully we're going to find out things about that funding. But yeah, for me, the priority is cataloguing, because we can't, unless an item has been catalogued, there's nothing to attach a digitized image to.
Right.
So it's sort of the secondary step, and I think maybe in the past we've jumped the gun a little bit with being able to digitize the collection when a lot of it hasn't been catalogued.
Yeah.
Okay.
A bit of a backlog, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Cataloguing, yeah.
yeah, but by getting, you know, more interaction online, catalogue, because our catalogue exists without images, it can still be searchable. And yeah, I think by increasing our online presence and having more interaction that way, it's, you know, going to lead to bigger and better things for the Treasury, and hopefully be able to make more money in the future.
So, Mark, just a separate follow-up question. So, have the volunteers that you've got volunteers, you said about people like being on the front desk and helping people out there, but you've got volunteers that have got skills for the cataloguing and the digitising.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got some volunteers, especially our photography volunteers who have like worked in photography studios all their lives kind of thing. So they, bring a lot of skill to that. And we've also applied, I think we've received funding for a couple of our volunteers to do a preservation and digitisation course through Open Polytechnic. So we're just about to pull out to see who wants to take up those spots. But yeah, we're definitely trying to not only just upskill staff, but also the volunteers.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, any other points of clarification from anyone? No? Oh, thank you very much for that information.
Cool,
For us, you know, the board.
And welcome.
What you're trying to prioritise and do. Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah. Sue, you want to come forward? Only last, Rick.
Good morning. Thank you. as someone who's severely claustrophobic, this math business is really tough, so bear with me.
Good morning.
Firstly, I'm not here about money. Secondly, Danielle's doing a brilliant job, so good for funding her. I am actually here to represent Little Chiefs Educare and Janie Smith, who's stuck in Mangatani and bespoke level 4, whatever bespoke means. And just to give you a bit of background, Janie has been involved with Little Chiefs. They're a member of the Business Association. She's been involved with Little Chiefs for 18 years. First as a teacher, then as a parent, and now as the owner. In 2017, someone closed the two-way direction of the laneway. Are you familiar with what we're talking about here down off Mackey Street?
Yes.
So now you can only enter and travel down, and it's very complicated. So the bottom line is that the vehicles now have to come in off Mary Street to the service lane. There's two issues here. One is service vehicles are delivering to the stores on Holland Street and blocking that laneway. The bigger issue is Ministry of Education. You have to be able to drop off your children within a specific distance between the building and the parking area. And thank you, Cheryl, for visiting with Janie. I just missed you because I met with her after. Really appreciate it. So we've looked at several different angles of how to fix this. And I've actually spoken with Rose about it because she's had her own personal concerns about safety for children.
Yep.
And Janie wanted to reiterate that it's never been an issue. So this is what we've come up with. She's been trying to resolve this for over 6 months.
Right.
And if
Ariana, can you hear this very well for your notes?
Ariana.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue's got some points to make.
So
Yeah, thank you.
the lane needs to return to two directions, as it is wide enough to accommodate vehicles going in and out at the same time. Signage, this is the big solution here, needs to be posted in two locations. As you enter the lane from Mackey Street and as you enter the lane from Mary Street. Such signage needs to read maximum speed 10K and caution, watch for children. Okay? This is the most reasonable solution to the problem, as it enables Little Chiefs to fulfill its legal obligations to the Ministry of Education regarding pickup and drop-off areas, including distances from the designated parking areas to the building. It allows service vehicles to access the shops via the Mary Street service lane without blocking the vehicles trying to reach Little Chiefs, because they will no longer need to enter that service lane from Mary Street. 3, it does not force the parent to break the law by entering what is currently a one-way lane from the wrong direction, which probably half of them are already doing, because they're frustrated. 4, it enables Little Chiefs staff and parents, as well as the patrons of the bite, because they're also impacted by this, to enter the lane and park in the designated spots without having to attempt to get to either parking areas through an often blocked lane. Finally, sometimes the solution is so easy, we miss it. Hopefully this is one such solution and can be implemented in the coming days. Thank you.
No, thanks, Sue. There might be some points of clarification the board would like to ask.
Ariana and Cheryl here. Thank you, Sue. That was a really comprehensive, précis of what's actually happening. I've been familiar with that service lane for years now, having worked at the community centre there. And I remember distinctly there was one time when, after it was changed, that a woman went to drive in through the service lane from Mary Street. It was blocked by a truck. When she asked them to move, because there's yellow lines and everything there, she was verbally abused, and the driver was very, very aggressive, and then the owner came in and was verbally aggressive and abusive. So they forced her to back out across the footpath where there's parking there, and then onto the road, which was an extremely dangerous manoeuvre. I agree with you totally that I think there is room for that service lane to be returned to being two-way. And I think people are quite respectful coming in there, and there's also room for people to move just onto the bike car park, so they need to make way. And one of the things Janie also mentioned was that maybe we could have a mirror put up.
Yep.
So that truckies or anybody else going back out service lane 7 onto Mary Street can see if there's anything approaching. So I think there is room to move there, and I was just wondering if maybe a request for service might not be the way.
Well, the roading department are looking at it at the moment.
Yeah.
Cheryl.
Yeah, because she does have a number of parks that she needs.
Yeah, she has to have 8 parking spots.
Right.
Rose and I also talked the other day about reversing the direction of the laneway, but we actually can't because the large service vehicles can't turn left when they get to the bottom of the lane to come out onto Mary. It's too sharp a corner. So we've looked at everything.
Yeah.
And
Have you looked at that possibility of turning circle, in that wider section as you enter by White, through there to the old Kids Club and then wide area? Is there any service areas there that could be used?
Yeah.
That might be in cooperation.
We want it to be safe, efficient, legal, and for it to be done really quickly. And the mirror is great, but I know they cost about $1,500, and they probably need a structural engineer and 55%. So that's why I didn't mention the mirror. But surely to goodness, we can get some signs up. And I don't see that Ed Barley would have an issue with that. So it would need to paint, get rid of that one directional sign down the laneway and make it 2, and just train everybody to use it.
Well, no, point's taken. I think it's very clear what you said. Yes, Martin.
Yeah, Mr. Martin, so presumably like you'd acknowledge that the lane between Carson's and Baptist Church is only one vehicle wide.
Yes.
Right. And I imagine that.
And that's part of the problem, because parents are sitting on Mary Street trying to get into that laneway while trucks are delivering to those shops on Holland Street, Peninsula Meats, High Stranger, et cetera, and they're frustrated. So then they turn around onto Mary Street, do a U-turn and go down the wrong way. We're trying to change that so that we're not forcing people to break the law.
And then they're doing,
And is the other entrance between White and the private residence there, obviously the hospital, is that?
Yeah, that's
wider, isn't it?
Oh, that's what Cheryl's talking about. It's a 2-lane road, basically.
Well,
not quite. Well, I think there was a bit of courtesy there. You could have it as a 2-lane.
And at 10K, you can always sneak into the side. Or the white parking.
No, practice is not.
Well, thanks for the information.
Can I just say, I think this is the first time I've heard the Thames Business Association advocating for businesses. We've heard the Thames Business Association talking about Thames businesses. I think it's fantastic.
It just made my heart sing, because it's my favorite job, and Bruce knows I've already done quite a bit of the job with Bruce. But we do it relatively quietly most of the time, but I wanted to help Janie because she's really frustrated. If she had to close her business, that's 40 kids without daycare and then 13 people with no jobs. So we really have to think long term. Thanks, Peter. That's all.
Thank you. Sorry to stress. No problem. No problem. There were a lot of people. No, Ruth, I understand you've got some good explanation for us, so we can just talk about that. Thank you.
Well, these marks are quite legal and they're only $7 around the corner. If you've got the glasses one, or you can get $4 ones around one of those shops in town. Better than their masks, because you don't breathe and cover them off. Okay, parks and reserves. I'm actually wondering what we've got employed here. Management don't seem to listen, they don't seem to care, and they seem to be actually kicking themselves in the butt when it comes to being using a reality. Firstly, I have
quite some time, been on about the creek, which is known legally as the Sunbeam Creek, which is just above Sailing Club at Thames. These lovely pictures of grass are your contractors mowing the creek, which is blocked and the grass is grown over. This picture here showing that concrete bit is on the seaside, and the gap you can see, the little light at the back, is on the hills at the east side. That is the blocked under pathway through under State Highway 25. The front side here with grasses, that is what's being mown by the contractors, blocking and making worse, because I know Kaikoura very, very well. And if there's a flood, it's got to try and squeeze through that little gap. And really, we don't want another flood down Tararoo Road. I've spoken to, by coincidence, to the person on the north side, sorry, the east side of the road, and she said that she'd been to the council, and they were told until it was almost completely blocked, nothing's going to be done about it.
Thanks.
Too late. That is actually standing on the road, looking out to the sea, and all you see, you can step off there, almost onto the grass, which is supposed to be a creek. That is appalling. That takes me to the North Reserve, which I have banged on about for the last 2.5 years. The potholes have got bigger. When we've had heavy rain, and I've gone down there doing community patrol, it is one massive lake. You cannot identify where the potholes are, so you can't creep around them. If someone breaks an asphalt on their vehicle, I wouldn't be surprised. It is really absolutely horrifying, and as I've said before, Higgins were meant to bring that back to the proper state. They never did the job, and our manager of Parks and Reserve seems to ignore the fact that there's a responsibility to it. And yes, I realise that management has changed in North Zealand. No very domain. My mother, when I was sitting there yesterday for my father's 114th birthday, although he is dead, my mother was a third generation person in Nauru Bay. That domain was put into place at the end of the 1940s by Johnny newcomers. They decided it had to be known, so they formed the domain board. That the board was taken over in approximately 2007 by TCDC, the Parks and Reserve Department. They took over the caring of the domain of it, but the locals look after it. When you look at these bollards here, I'm standing at the end of the road. That was the access which goes to the last of the residents above the grass area. That road went straight down to the lane, because that was the only access until the mid-1960s. You know that was that, because the lane between the end of this road, it went a bit along to where W. Edwards lived, and then it came to where Gilliam's had a property on both sides of the paper road, and they mowed and they kept it all as one big section. Then the council said, no, we're going to put that road in, which made it quite a bit of a type 2 to get in and out. However, one person complained to Parks and Reserve about a camper van that was parked down there at the back of a property on the edge of the domain. Those people were there to support a family member who was dying, who did die, was only there for a few days, and Parks and Reserve listened to one complaint and went and put bollards in. Now, if the people at the Nauru Bay did not care about that place, you would have a track still going from the end of the tarmac right down. They didn't abuse it. One complaint and they acted on it. 2.5 years of complaints, they don't do anything about it. Several years of complaints or bringing to their attention about the creek, and so they mowed the problem. Where is the common sense of it? And I do know for a fact that the residents went to Parks and Reserve with a petition asking them not to put the bollards in. Last time I was into one of the residents about it to get the fact, not see what I might like to think, and the person said they're absolutely totally upset about it, because they still look after the park, they still respect it, they all use it, they have community get-togethers, not over COVID, but so be that. And they said, oh, $200 can't go, bollocks. If they can put them in that easy, they can pull the damn things out that easy. It is a convenient way at times, if necessary, and in times of compassion, people can get through to support their families in need. And I think that was an excellent abuse of our ratepayers' money. And it was also offensive to the people that actually maintain and look after that domain. And while we're at it, that Ngārumu domain, the name, if we want to go back to changing names, that should go back and be called Hillington Domain, because that belonged to Hillingtons. They gave that land, they own all that place, and let's get it correct as per place names, like the rest of the coast, where they should be proper names. Please connect the action, and possibly, if not possibly, can those bollards be removed?
Yeah.
Because it really is offensive. One complaint, and it gets done. I ran this once last week because of an abuse in one of the poll section, and I was told it's civil matter, which that was, and they wouldn't do anything about it, and an elderly person was being abused by other people parking, that you couldn't park outside the house.
Okay, thanks for the information, though. We appreciate it. Is there any problem?
Sorry.
No, I'll go Peter, Mr. Martin.
Ruth, do you live on that reserve?
I don't live on that reserve, I have a 4-generation connection with that reserve.
Martin, is that so that's the main of Ngārumu Lane, of Hawaii?
Partially and known, yes.
Right, so it's the access you've got Hatui and then less than Ngārumu.
Yeah.
And it's along there.
You can either access it from the top side, going down, which then you're sort of parking, if you want to go from that way, you're then parking in front of someone's driveway, or you can go from the lane, but not really you can park from that area anyway.
Okay.
Thanks, Martin. Robin? Yeah.
Robin, I have a question for Bruce about Tāmuru. It's a creek. Where, if it's on a reserve, where is our responsibility versus where it's regional capital?
Yeah, through the chair, it is a tricky one with devastating a number of private properties on the eastern side of the highway. It is something that we'll probably need to look at with our water services team as well as our parks team. It all depends on levels. I've done this for a number of years. We've got trees growing across the whole understand, which is maybe blown up over time. And it's blocking a part of the channel. It could be an issue depending on levels. As long as the levels work out, I'm actually not concerned about a stream being concrete. It might be doing quite nicely as long as it doesn't quite happen. But if it's built up too high with wind-blown sand and then it's not concrete, it could be an issue. So, and again, I'm happy for the team to go out and look at that and just see what's going on.
Excuse me, sorry, but you just said that it hasn't been serviced for years.
No, I haven't been out.
Oh, you haven't been out there for years. I'd like to, and I do know that the locals there would like to actually be a party when you go out and have a look, so that you actually hear the history of the place, so you know what actually does happen. Because I was told by the service, only last year when they were clearing it, I went down and I said to them, well, what goes? And I said, how come TCDC is servicing this? This part here belongs to Regional Council. Regional Council went up to the state highway from the Colwyn and the east side of it belonged to TCDC. I was told, number one, it was a drain, and I said, no, it's not, it is a creek, and the headland of the creek is badly blocked. And two, that TCDC should not be, us ratepayers should not be paying for what Waikato Regional Council should be looking after. Now, we've got nothing.
So, Brooks, I'd like to, the reason that I asked that question, and I have to scratch the omission, is that as somebody who lives in that area and has a view of that, I have seen workers there recently clearing it at the beach end. And I know that they weren't ours, they were regional councils. So I was just checking whether you're asking us to do something that is not in our jurisdiction, in which case we can't help you, and that's frustrating for everybody. So getting that answer from Bruce has really helped me understand how we can help you.
Well,
so thank you.
So once again, the council has changed hands. It's changed from one regional council had handed in because I was told that there was a discussion between regional council and TCDC some time ago, and TCDC agreed with taking over the responsibility from the footbridge up to the road.
Okay, thank you. No, that's all right. Thank you so very much. It's all right. All right, Ariana, you got all that? Hopefully it should. So that's public forum. Thank you. I'll move a second public forum. Move Peter, second. Gerald, thank you. Well done, guys. Any conflicts of interest? Rob, yes.
I am the co-chair of Transition Town Thames, who's the department of in the Grassround.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Transition Town Thames.
Yep. Peter?
Mine is, I'm chair of the Tauranga Valley Pool Society.
Thank you. And Cheryl?
I'm not chair of anything, but I still think I might have a conflict of interest for one of the applications, so when it comes to that, can I just let you know why?
Can you just tell what's?
Oh, it's just it's the Thames Community Centre application for the driver licensing program, and I started that up.
Yeah.
So what, you know, I might be seen as having some.
That was through, I think, too.
Yeah. So I'd rather bow out. I think we just didn't make it like that.
You're happy with that?
Yeah.
That's fine, you know, it's up to you really as well.
Yeah.
Martin?
So I'm vice president of the Thames-Coromandel Drama Society, that was my son up there. I'm also a member of the Thames Business Association, but
I think that's okay.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, that one.
So I am the IT provider for Moanatairu School, but I don't stand to gain any money from what they're asking for there. I was the founding member of Transition Town Thames, but I'm not involved with the management of that anymore. And I think that is ex-president of the Tauranga Society. That's all.
Sorry. I'm also on the board of the community centre.
Yeah, I think sometimes with these things, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ariana, is sometimes you need to look within yourself and feel that whether you can have an open mind about, you know, your transparency or your decision making. I think really what that's what it's about. Sometimes you have a direct conflict of interest. I can't hear that there's any direct conflict of interest in relationship to what you have, but there are people memberships or just a membership or that sort of thing. So long as you can be clear that you can be clear, I think that's okay. That's my understanding of it. Would that be right? Ariana, I guess, yeah.
Yes, that is right. And as you know, staff Rose has provided her recommendation, so we will take that first, and if there is any debate on any of the applications, then that might be a time where you may need to step out of the conversation if you have declared a conflict.
So what I'm saying is really up to you on in this case, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. There being no other conflicts of interest, we don't need a very sector for that.
No, you don't.
No. Any items not on the agenda?
Yeah, take that us.
Ruth, are you okay if we take our masks off?
By all means, I think very confident at all.
No problem.
I'm more than far enough away from you.
Yeah, okay, that's
Please,
excellent. So we can do that. That's all right?
That's why I got it now.
Thank you. So no items on the agenda, thank you very much. Yep. 1 minute for confirmation. We'll take those as being. There were some aspects relating to my members' report that have come up. So for those corrections to take place, Ariana, you know what they were, that's just some grammatic things. Are there any other points of interest relating to the agenda? Oh, no, that's good. I'll move that they be accepted. Is it?
I'll second, Sally.
Thank you. Don't know why I moved that, but I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Right, What time? 9:45.
Or are there minutes arising from those?
Oh, well, this I just moved, sorry. Any matters arising from the minutes? Yeah, we've asked that question. Did the hearing, yeah. Have you got any matters arising?
I'd just like an update on what happened with the request of the community groups that hadn't applied for rates remission or whatever it was, service charges.
Right.
Yeah, so item on the minutes 3.1. Request staff to contact the community groups that meet the criteria for admission but have not applied. What was the outcome of that?
But shouldn't that be in the action schedule?
Is in the action schedule.
Shouldn't it
I think it might be, yeah, so I think we, that's right.
Was it in there, Aaron? You see?
Through the chair, I'm just curious, you're talking about the rates remission item that happened last meeting, is that correct? Okay, Donna, would you be able to help with that query? Because I think that's just part of the process that they are contacting the groups at the moment. Yeah.
That's true, that's the Aaron. So, and contact with lots of groups and those that will, that can apply through the Audit Risk Committee meeting. There's a paper going up to that meeting in October.
October, yeah.
So you're all right with that, Peter? So it's in progress, isn't it? Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Any other matters arising from the minutes? We haven't moved from taking us, so we're going to go with that now. Thank you.
I just wanted to say through the chair, are we okay to have masks off or is it still here?
Yes, I've asked that question.
We are?
Staff for it, and she's comfortable with it. She's well enough distance. She's got her mask.
I believe that the rules state that if there is public that's still in the room, and I can't actually see on the public forum side, but if there is, I believe you do have to keep your mask on.
Okay.
I'm just pretty sure on that. I can see the staff at the back have still got theirs on. Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct, Aaron.
All right. So now 2.1. So there's three parts to the grant, our community grant, and it's because each has a different objective, I suppose, that's the way of putting it, in terms of our policy and how we allocate funds from three aspects of our grant. So you have read the information in detail. You have read the analysis in relationship to the criteria used, and I will let Rose speak to that, to how that was together. And one of the benefits of what is happening here is that through the council outcomes and the community outcomes, we've gone back to our key planning documents and policies and goals and missions, tried to state those. And as we all know as a board, we'll be reviewing those aspects over the next 6 months. But I believe what Rose has done here is a very good convincing point. Excellent work has been done, and Rex has helped, our strategic manager has helped with that process. So I'll let Rose elaborate on that and speak to Ryan. Thank you, Rose.
I'll try and speak as clearly as I can. The purpose of this report, which is titled Thames Community Board Grant Allocation of Funding in 2021-22 from the Community Grants Fund,
is to assess applicants who submit their applications via a contestable grant process. So we had a contestable grant round from the 1st of July to the 31st of July. We received 26 applications and there are 27 projects or initiatives. One applicant applied twice and that was Moana Tari School. That falls within the policy as applicants are able to submit an application for an event as well as an initiative. The criteria for assessment is in attachment B, and this is the Council and Community Board outcome in accordance with the grant policy. The policy is that all not-for-profit groups are eligible to apply. And so there's no distinction between any of the not-for-profit groups that includes schools. So today there are 3 options for consideration, and the options have been assessed against the criteria, and each of the applicants have been assessed against the criteria in attachment B. Option 1 is to invest in the high priority projects and initiatives. There are 9 in this group. It's a mix of events, projects and equipment. I'll just point out that the grants policy does state groups can apply for council hall hire. This option is recommended. Option 2 is to invest in medium priority initiatives and projects. There are 10 in the group. Invest and projects, so there are events and projects and initiatives. A few groups have been previously supported, and this option is recommended. The third option is invest in low priority initiatives and projects. There are 8 in the group. And this option is includes again some work and maintenance, one group is to present organise some presentations, and there's a project as well in there, in that group. So this option is not recommended. So in summary, this approach is looking at what the council and community board outcomes are, and if we can keep that in mind during the discussion, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose, and I think that's just in terms of the transparency and accountability of the process. I think we help. So we'll start. Yes, Dali, thank you. Dali.
I have a issue around 2.2, which is the discretionary budget, and approving the discretionary budget at the beginning of the financial year. So it's not discretionary, it's allocated. And I understand there are issues around transparency and legality of having discretionary funds unallocated. What I'm wondering is if, as a board, we didn't agree with the recommendation of what to do with the discretionary fund, and we wanted to join it up with this fund,
yes,
does that change the outcome of 2.1 before we discuss 2.2? So that is my sort of umbrella problem that I'd quite like to tell you about.
It's a very good point. I speak to it, Ariana as well. 2.2 talks about a discretionary fund, which historically allowed us to keep something up our sleeve should something urgent come up, like traffic closure in the main street because of an event that suddenly popped up, or like all of our, where we get a worthy organisation on the way of some of their fee, and so forth. The process in terms of accountability and transparency in accordance to the Local Government Act that discretionary fund is being questioned in relationship to our requirements under the local government. We would need to be a little bit more upfront, transparent and accountable in relationship to how we should allocate funds. That maybe should be done from the beginning of each year as part of the allocation plan process that follows good norms in relationship to submissions, long-term plans, accountability, all that sort of thing. So at that point of view, you would have noticed in 2.2, we might go to that item first before we go to discuss item 1. I'm open to your recommendations here, Rose. We might go to 2.2 to discuss that item. If the options that have been presented in 2.2 has attempted to follow a line in relationship to our community outcomes, our plans, our annual plans, our long-term plans. It's not to say that those options are exactly right. And that's what needs to be discussed. And it may be that one option would be is to reallocate that 20,000 discretionary fund to our grants process and look at that. It'd be an additional 20,000. Look at that in terms of our criteria assessment and analysis and say, can we boost the funding either option 1 or 2 in terms of our criteria assessment? In other words, some of those funds that have been allocated under option 2 may be able to be increased as a result of the 20,000. But I don't think you have now the option to just have a fund up your sleeve. We have to be apparently proactive rather than reactive. In other words, I don't think the local government act allows you to sort of be reactive to having a fund up your sleeve, because it's not fair and equitable to everybody that's out there that might be trying to apply for funds. Have I got that right?
Well, I mean, we heard this morning from Althea. I wrote down some of her comments this morning, and so her comments are along the lines of what you're talking about. So the comments she made were, we want a level playing field, and the committees are wide.
Right. Yeah. That's an example, isn't it?
So she was simply.
So,
I would want to can either be
right. In the instance where we might need to reallocate some of that money, I'm not saying that's going to be your decision to the grants process that we're considering today. It might be best to go to 2.2.
Yeah.
Is that all right, Ariana? And we'll do 2.2 before we do 2.1. We've had an introduction to 2.1 from Rose.
Okay, 2.2.
And we shall go to 2.2 and just see what's provided there. So everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we go to 2.2.
Okay, moving on to 2.2, the title of the report is Thames Community Board's Discretionary Budget, Approval of Preferred Project for Allocation in 2021-22. The purpose of the report is to confirm the process to allocate funds from Thames Community Board's discretionary budget. The funding is $20,000. There are 3 options that have been put forward for consideration today. Option 1 is to invest in new initiatives or projects. And this, I've given some examples there. This option is not recommended because it's not seen to, it's not fair and equitable. Option 2 is invest in client applications in the 21-22 contestable grants round. That is not recommended due, well, I've provided the reason there in the report. And option 3 is invest in initiatives and or projects identified in the Thames-Coromandel District Sport and Active Recreation Plan. So I was looking for guidance documents in terms of Thames groups and a fair and equitable way to allocate, how this could be allocated. And in that plan, a lot of work has been done with groups
a couple of years ago, and that plan was adopted by council in 2020. A lot of the Thames group are recommended to be involved in the hub, the sports hub, and the recommendations in the report, or the recommendation is for consideration of those 7 groups. I just need to move down to the next report.
Thank you, Sally. Yes.
So what I'm saying is option 3 makes sense in terms of you've got a paper trail through to planning, and we can now start implementing. So I'm, as sitting here, I can see that. If I was out there, I'd be saying, where is heritage in that and not sport? And so, and I know that we're going to review all of this in a year, but I know how quickly a year goes by, and I can probably, so to me, I can see your pathway and I can see the logic, but we're never going to make it equitable for everyone in the community, because I can hear and feel the heritage people saying, well, where's our plan, and et cetera, et cetera.
So there is a strategy, there is a heritage strategy, but it hasn't got that, the groups listed like that. So if groups would want to be in the process, they need to get in the plan. So if there was a heritage project like that sport and active recreation plan, the heritage groups would be in it, their projects would be prioritised, and we could look at those. And that's what I've talked to Leslie about, of getting them to that stage somehow in the future, the groups in Thames. But ideally for Thames, and I've spoken to Strad about this, is the ideal, the optimal is that we have a plan with all the projects and the initiatives. They're prioritised against the criteria that are aligned with the direction of council and the community board, and that's what we use for guidance.
And that's a great thing, because it will give some teeth to a grants process, to our community plan, which, you know, needs some validation. It's always been an issue. Yes, Martin.
Martin, so just around, I mean, just echoing what Sally has said, you know, the heritage people could say, well, where's heritage? And as the arts person, I can look at that and say, well, where's art from that? And I think there'd be considerable pushback from everyone who's not into sport and recreation, saying, well, that discretionary fund is just going to, why call it a discretionary fund? It's really a sports fund.
Yeah.
And I get what Rose says about the strategy. You know, said we've got a Thames heritage strategy, but I don't think that's got any money associated with it.
Well, nor, there's no numbers, there's no projects, there's nothing tangible that, you know, like I've listed in those recommendations, I've listed projects.
Yeah, but what's the process for projects to get into the Thames heritage strategy?
And that's a very good question, because we haven't got a heritage strategy as such. We have a Thames recreational activity plan. We've got a Thames promotion plan, we've got a Thames development strategy, we've got a youth strategy, we've got, you know, certainly some strategies and plans that council follows in this direction. So, you know, it's a very good question, Martin. How are we producing the equity issues relating to what we're recommending in option 3? I'm not quite sure. So this is where we're leading the conversation to the point where until we do the review, is it better that we have an option 4 that suggests we reallocate that 20,000 discretionary fund? But we all know that's a problem in terms of local government act, and we make the decisions under 2.1 relationship to 20,000 for this year, because we know that's transparent, and we can look at everybody that's applied for funding through the submission process. We have this funding available, and I think that's way more transparent. And then we can look at question on whether we keep that allocation separate in our decisions for next year, and you know, the criteria that option 3 is trying to follow. how that might be the best equitable option, or will we just leave it 20,000 and 75,000 comes 95,000? Yep.
Peter Evans, is it an option to kick the can down the road on this one? Are we needing to make a decision today about allocation of discretionary funding?
The decision today is about the process we want, so it's the process, it's not necessarily what you want to allocate it to, it's the process. So the purpose of this was to decide what process do you want to use. So if you wanted to go down the track of that track has put forward as an idea, of joining it with the other fund, that is another option. So I haven't presented that option. That'll be option 4. My comment on that is we've been through a fair and equitable process. The whole community has the opportunity to apply for funding. It's transparent. Each application was assessed in detail. I read every single application and all the financial accounts for every single group that applied.
Yeah, given the questions relating to this whole thing, I wonder whether in fact it'd be better linked to option 1 at this stage, but I'm not sure. So, Robin?
Just taking what you said there, Rose, I think we haven't discussed 2.1 in a whole lot of great detail, but I think there are some really good reasons why some of the items in option 3 of 2.1, the ones that we shouldn't fund, are there. And I would think that if we had more money and we were looking at it through the same lens, we would still not want to fund them because they still don't fit the criteria. And obviously we'll litigate that, when we get to item 2.1, but that's my hesitation for adding the discretionary budget to that. Yes, it's a transparent process, but with having more money to fund, is that going to fund us things that we have originally said we don't really want to fund? Like, it doesn't tick our box until we have a little bit of extra cash in hand, we do.
Yeah, so that would be a decision when we're going through those options.
Exactly.
But there are 4 projects in options 1 and option 2. So 2 of the projects in option 1 and 2 projects in option 2. Because of the limited amount of funding, I recommended 25% investment in one of those projects and 33% investment in the other 3 projects. I would have recommended 33% in that one, but because of the restriction and the way it worked out, I was able to recommend 25% and 33% in 3.
That makes sense.
So I would be recommending that the other ones were up to 33%.
Okay.
If that's the way you want to go.
Martin? Yes. Thank you, Robin.
So earlier on, we were talking about discretionary budget, and I guess in the past, as people said, that has been used to be able to say 3/4 of the way through the year, oh, heck, such and such a group wants to close the road for a parade or a sponsor, but then fallen through, can the community board help out? And I guess, is the word discretionary, is that the appropriate solution? Because our whole community grant is discretionary. We decide what we're going to spend it on, and I just think, what's the purpose of this 20,000? Is it there as a, and I'm not, not a rainy day thing or something, but just having it there as a backstop for something that comes along, didn't have the chance to do an application because, they hadn't developed the plans.
That's been the purpose in the past years.
Yeah.
But the advice we're receiving staff in a particular rep and those
don't do that,
yeah.
It's through the chair, creating a level of annoyance amongst some groups. That one group may not have got organised to get their application in. The years of 9 months have gone by and they're scrambling at the end, and we had an example of that just very recently. And make people don't react. And the idea is that if you're planning ahead, you've got your ducks in line, you've got enough time to,
Yeah, and sometimes magic happens
quickly, and it's a bloody long time before the end of June. So yeah, anyway, I'll give up.
Okay, well, look, there's three options here. And I'm feeling, is anyone comfortable with any of the options? Thank you, Julie.
So Chair, please, can you tell us what the examples that we just recently had?
We're in public.
I can talk about it. I won't name the group. So the group approached the group presented before today and wanted funding. I explained that the cut-on, the decisions are going to be made today and therefore it didn't fit the time frame. And so then that person went to Kirsten, that person went to another community board member, you know, trying to play us. And just because that group did not get organised earlier in the year, applied to a funder to get the funding they needed for their traffic management and other costs. So that's the example. And we've got groups, you know, that do get organised and apply to funding for event funding by no matter what the cost. So it could be traffic management or it could be a number of different event-related costs.
Okay, thanks, Rose. I mean, we've narrowed it down to either, it seems that option 1 and 2, 2.1, 2.2, not advisable. And option 3 seems to be the best option as presented under this report. And now we have an option 4. Yes, members have a different option. So the option 4 is we've discussed to reallocate that 20,000 to our 2.1 process or not. So can I go around the table and just get your feeling relationship to those two options, option 3 or option 4? And at least we can get an expression of that unless somebody's got a different option. Or do we need to actually call on Rex just to reaffirm some of the issues around the LGA and what's been recommended to move on with this subject? So,
Can you, sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Could you spell it for the form, please?
Four was to allocate the discretionary budget to the grants process. Now, we're lumping in with the 75,000 that becomes 95,000 as an option, and it gives you the option to reallocate $20,000 to either options 1, 2, or likely 1 or 2, as opposed to 3.
That's option 2 in the order package. So what
what Strat's proposing is that the funding, the 20,000 be allocated towards options 1 and 2 recipients. And
Sorry, I thought I'd made that clear.
I'm getting a bit confused here. Can we go over the options? They've got their options here, but they're not putting in with what we're talking about.
Are you on 2.2 or 2.1?
2.2.
yeah, we're on.
This is about the actual allocation of funding, not about a process.
So under 2.2, did you want to explain it, Rose?
So we're talking about the process.
Yeah.
This is the report, the process for allocation of $20,000.
Right.
And we've got 3 options. Another option has been put forward today.
Yeah.
And that is to reallocate the $20,000 towards recipients that have been recommended. And option 1 and 2 and report number 2.1 allocation potential grant funding. That's
Okay,
the option.
I get that. Can you just go over 1, 2, and 3? That's what I
Option
got.
Option 1
Yeah.
is invest in new initiatives or projects.
Right.
Option 2 is invest in declined applications in the 2021-22 potential grant round. Option 3, invest in initiatives and or projects identified in the Thames-Coromandel district sport and recreation plan. And the new option is invest in
options 1 and 2 grant recipients, because of course they're not all fully funded. And report 2.1.
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Just one question. So because we haven't, sorry, Marianne, because we haven't fully discussed item 2.1 yet, there is opportunity for some of the things in option 3 to move into option 2 category. So we're not. That's a possibility? Yeah. So that would be further discussed. Okay.
Providing the main application on the continuing grant.
Well, no, I'm just looking because we haven't discussed those. I mean, some of the items in item 2.1, some of the options in option 3, some of the declined grants, I think deserve to be granted. So I'm just checking. Yeah.
And that is the difference, isn't it, between before and now, is that before we could all go around and debate and put forward what we thought. And this model is somewhat, it's basically been by strict criteria. And if you're going to have transparency and accountability, if we start saying, well, no, we don't actually agree with that, well, then we haven't stayed with the criteria. So we're in a bit of a dilemma here.
So basically, in a nutshell, taking 20,000 from 2.2 on our agenda, putting it in 2.1, but what I'm hearing is that we don't want to necessarily limit that 20,000 to just the 1 and 2 recommended, that we want to have the option. Stop using the word option. We want to have the choice maybe of looking at some of the things in option 3, which often don't miss out by many points. You know, it's only really 1 point difference between 4 and 3. Is that correct?
I think you word the resolution carefully.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so just for further clarity, my understanding of the option 4 that's on the table, what that will do in reality is increase the budget from 75 to 95,000.
Yeah.
We discussed that, correct? Yeah. I see that.
That is moved.
no, we need to do it formally, so we need to read out a resolution.
Yep.
So this is where we need to be really careful.
You're right with this, Ariana?
I am, and I actually have something, so I will share my screen, but Rose, just direct me if you need me to change anything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see that.
Read it out to us, Ariana.
We'll blow it up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to blow it up. Can you see that?
But more.
Is that better?
Yeah, getting there.
Keep going.
Sorry, guys.
But that's the resolution, the proposed resolution.
No, that doesn't give us any wiggle room. That means we can I would like to reallocate the 20,000 discretionary funding.
Not option 1, because option 1 is already running.
No, it's not to read it through. Okay, so what's proposed is approved to reallocate the 20,000 discretionary funding for option 1, applicants number 1 to 9, and option 2, applicants number 10 to 19, the difference of item 2.1, 10 community board plus allocation of funding in 2021-22 from the community grant fund. So this is the draft. So we're going to tweak this.
Yeah, this is just a draft. This is just what I've picked up on what I can hear, but yeah, I'm happy to be directed otherwise.
So firstly from Peter.
My understanding is that we're allocating it to all the applications.
Well, no.
It's not like 2.1.
We're not?
So we're making it available to all.
Yeah, to all the applications from item 2.1.
So can we take out where Ariana's writing now, option 1 applicant numbers and option 2 applicant numbers, because that constrains us, and we can't have a debate about question 2.1. No, not all applications, all successful applications. No.
No.
Well, yeah, but at the moment, this is we're going to give everybody who applied the money, and that's not what we're doing. Approve the application for the all the applicants.
Yeah, really,
Recommend.
No, I'm not happy.
Okay.
so what would you recommend, Sally?
I recommend that. I still haven't given up on that the $20,000 of the discretionary fund was for the unexpected and our flexibility to meet the needs of our community other than from the 1st of July to the 31st of July. And if you all know exactly what you're going to do until the end of July, when you're a better person than I am, because I do not. And there are some groups of people that need the flexibility for us to help them. I have been told that it is not good practice. I have yet not been told it is illegal and I can't do it. So until I hear that, I'm going to dig my little donkey toes in and say I won't be voting for anything.
Can I add to that? So that's exactly what I defended. Very vigorously on the phone until I heard that, we could be.
I haven't heard
conflict with the LTA. Well, that's why I'm asking for.
And if the Auditor General says I can't do this, well, we won't. We have 1 year. We're talking about $20,000. We are not talking about millions. And so if Rex tells me that I can't do it, well, then I'll listen to that. But I can't see why a bit of flexibility is not transparent and accountable. And it's $20,000. We are never going to meet the needs of our community, whether it's 75 or 95. And we are reviewing this year or next year. So why don't we just tell the auditor that we're reviewing it in a year and we'll be very accountable for the $20,000?
Although there's never been a problem to the auditor in the past.
Well, I don't know. Yes.
Anyway,
So that's where I'm sitting.
it's good.
Sorry to be grumpy.
Well, no.
If we're going to sit with that, and I hear what Sally's saying, then I just don't want it tagged for any specific grant application.
Right.
But it could be for anybody.
Is everyone in agreement that we don't want to tax?
Through the chair, in terms of reference, the community volunteers has a paragraph in there, and that is reference to funding, and what it says is that it can be used for anything. It's not actually just about grants. So it can be used for any object, it can be used for any caveats. Like I said, the shortfall and process during the years, you can particularly, want to add some money or the scopes change slightly, but we want to pay for it. There's a whole raft of reasons. It's not just about grant.
Oh, good. So can I move a resolution that we hold 2.2, that the discretionary fund $20,000 is held for discretionary activity?
Yes.
And not allocated at this point in time? Can I do that?
Well, Chair, it's option 1. So that is the option 1. Invest in new initiatives or projects, like it's a flexible one.
Okay.
There are like coming. That's option 1.
I'll second that.
So I move option 1 then. I just want to, God.
Yeah, so that option.
Is it option 1?
Just along.
Or can I do it?
Well, let's have a look at it.
Well, they're identified as they come in, but I still need to write a report. So I'll read you the reference. I'll read you from the terms of reference that Donna was referring to. So
Well, we know of option one, but that's too specific.
Local activity within following. The decision makes relevant legislative and council policy requirement, including any controls on the use of funds from the respective account. The decision is made after considering a report from staff. So I still just wrote a report. Yeah. This expenditure may be operating or capital in nature or a mixture of the two, which is what Donna was saying. This expenditure cannot fund the additional capacity component of capital projects as this is funded by development. It can only fund renewal or increased level of service components of capital projects. Yeah. So in summary, like option one is, you know,
I feel like
identify the projects or initiatives or that come in, and I still need to write a report. Yeah.
Yep.
So through the chair, Jonathan, does that fit in with the policy that you read out as far as that discretionary?
Yes, through the chair, kind of is, I think the staff writing the report bit is not about having to write a report for the whole discretionary fund, it's about writing a report when discretionary fund wants, you know, it needs to be used. Or suggested to be used, so that would be, you know, several reports during the year.
Yeah.
Okay, and my secondary follow-up question, do we want to have new initiatives? Because someone did say, oh, a project over, I heard someone say something about a project overrunning.
So
Just something new.
One if I had is actually discretionary funds, so it's up to your discretion what you use it for.
Right, so does that us putting a word new, and I know it's only a word, but does that
Initiatives and projects.
if we've got new in there?
So can we, usually it's, you know, like last year it was the beach. That's new, and it was rates for bowling clubs, as per the report. Yeah, so things that have come out.
So we have to move on to the second game.
For what?
It's up on the screen, Sally. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So the intent really is to use it as a discretionary fund, and that will meet the decision-making requirements of the local government act, and to make a resolution in the future related to some projects that might come forward with us where we want to use that fund.
Yes, so that's where I have trouble with the new initiatives or projects, that might be that, I don't know, that we've got, you know, Mary Street, the vibe, we've got a container down there. Somebody like, I don't know, who might want to do something for Easter there and fill it up with little chickens or something. And it's an amazing idea. It's a memory from my childhood until we used to do it in Pongarang. And they want some money? And they want to help to get some electricity to keep the little chickens warm. That kind of thing. Or Derek might come to us and say, the public art thing there and the new furniture that Men's Shed's doing for us, I haven't got enough, but we need $1,000 for the concrete pad. That's what I want to be able to do, sensible things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I don't think one says that, I think it's.
Yeah, my comment picture is that that's a project, and we've got groups like that that apply for grant funding in a contestable process. So,
but this could be us, this could be council stuff. We've spent discretionary money on Mary Street Council, you know. Discretionary.
So it's not necessarily that the board can suggest potential initiatives or projects and the report will be prepared. It's more about the community might suggest some things just pop up. Anyway.
I have removed the word new, if that does help with your requests, Sally.
yeah, I guess my comment about the chair about this direction going is it leaves the community board up for criticism from the community that, don't think it's fair that one group got the opportunity when all the other groups didn't know there was funding available.
Right, and I would say that option about putting it all into sports would cause more furore in the valley profile than Lindsay Road did in Whangamata. So it isn't, so to me, and this is for a year, and it's for $20,000, and we are reviewing all of this, and I think as a board, we have to get our heads around this whole thing, even like doing this amount of money for such a huge need. It's a bit like, so to me, this is only for this year because we've been told we're going to review it.
I'm full support of what Sally's saying, so it's a matter of how we put the wording around it. It's stressful.
Through the chair, the other option to do is you don't have to make a resolution, none of the report on the table.
Yeah. We just carry on. I think what
the report and made our decision. Can I move that we receive the report?
I'll take it
And I really want to acknowledge your work, Rose, because it has been thorough and you're trying to get us to move in a direction and that will all come with the review. But I think me representing this community, we need this for this year. And I think that's as flexible and accountable and transparent as what was suggested here. So thank you.
We understand the reps that we're trying to bring. No, that's good.
So we're going to make them just come and take these off.